Well, hello and welcome back to another tutorial with the Essentials Club. If you and you're around here, I am Maddie and welcome. Today we're going to be jumping into making a number that I've had on my to make list for so long now. In my mind, going to be a super simple and straightforward process, but we'll see how we go. It's a off the shoulder puffy sleeve top that has an elastic neck / chest line, elastic waist and an elastic end of the sleeve to give it a big puffy gathered over effect. I feel like this will just be something super minimal and nice to have as a go-to in my wardrobe and can easily pair with pretty much everything I already have, like skirts, pants, even layer it with some overalls. That could be super cute. So if you want to follow along and make your own off the shoulder gathered shirt, this is what you'll need to get started. We'll need some material, ideally something nice and lightweight, as that will just handle the gathered flowy effect much nicer. This one here feels like a cotton. I can't quite remember what it was, but it's got this beautiful like embroidered effect all throughout it, so I think that'll come up really nicely, and it's super lightweight, so it'll be nice and airy and flowy when I wear it. You'll also need some matching thread to go with your material, some pins as well as a safety pin, some fabric chalk, measuring tape, enough elastic to go around your waist, all the way around your shoulder and underarm section, and one area for your wrist as well. You'll notice that mine are all different thicknesses, and that isn't for any particular reason at all. It's just that I wanted to use up what I had laying around and they happen to be all different. So if you end up using all the same thicknesses, that's probably ideal. You can go super thin, that will still work. You can go quite thick, about an inch, that will work as well. So whatever aesthetic and functionality you prefer, go with that. You'll also need a shirt to reference. I would suggest something kind of oversized, as we want this to be a bit of a gathered effect. So I have my large size essential shirt on hand, and that is going to be my reference for when it comes time to cutting out the pattern for this top. And then lastly, we'll need our trusty old sewing machine. So once you have all of those essentials, we'll jump into making our new top. First off, we're going to throw on our reference shirt and just plot out some points so we know where to cut and figure out the shape for the top. And yes, I know this shirt is very crinkled. I just couldn't be bothered ironing it today. It's about 1,000,000 degrees here, and I just really don't want to use a hot iron, to be honest. Obviously, this top is going from our underarm up to our shoulder, but we need to make sure that we don't cut this scoop too low that it doesn't cover our boobs, because that would not be ideal. So the reason we're putting this top on is so we can grab a pin and pin in place that side edge to make sure that we keep outside of. So once you've got that in place, we're going to take it off and we will lay this over the top of our material ready to trace. We will then just kind of fold one of the shoulders under and start mapping out this line that we'll be drawing. Where we are folding this, it's going to be the final line, so we need to remember to add seam allowance. And essentially what I'm doing is straight from this underarm section, going to that pin and then almost curving around to fit that neckline. So once you're happy with the look of that, tuck this sleeve in over here, and then you can go down to the length that you desire. For me, I'm going to make this a midriff length, but I do want it to be quite bunched up, so I'm just going to go a little bit beyond there. And once you've figured out your length, you'll then need to add enough seam allowance for any of the edges that will be adding elastic. So this totally depends on the thickness of your elastic. So whatever yours is, double that and then add an inch for seam allowance. Keep that in mind, and then the rest of the areas you'll need to only add an inch seam allowance. As well, if this shirt isn't oversized already, you can extend it a little bit further, as that will help gather it in as well. So once you have got that already, outline it and then cut that, and then you can use that first one that you cut out as a template for the back section. Make sure when you lay down the first piece as a template on the material to cut out the second piece that the good sides are facing. That way you'll have matching panels ready to add together. So now that we have these front and back panels for the main section of the top, we are going to start assembling them. So lay them with the good sides facing, and then we'll sew one line across this shoulder section, one line across this side seam, and one line across this other side seam. So then that connects it, and we can start adding the elastic and the sleeves on. So next we're going to add the sleeves. You'll need your excess material, and the easiest way I've found to do this is grab it and fold it, and this top section will be the top of the arm, and that bottom open section will end up being the seam underneath our arm. Then grab your top and flip it so the good sides are facing out, and lay that on top of this section, and that will help us indicate how much fabric we need to cut. So you might need to shimmy this fabric around so that you're not wasting any excess material, and so that it just takes up the height of this hole plus an extra inch seam allowance. So move that around until you get to a point that you're happy with. Once you've got that, grab your fabric chalk and just trace that armhole edge with the extra seam allowance, and that will be our armhole ready to trim. To figure out the length of your sleeve area, you'll just need to measure from your shoulder down to where you want it to finish, plus enough seam allowance for the elastic area to go in and to add that seam there. So again, just do the same method where you figure out the width of your elastic that you'll be adding in, double that, and then add an inch of seam allowance. So again, for me, that's going to be about 2.5 inches, and then an extra inch for the seam allowance up the top here. I'm going to measure from my shoulder down to like this mid-arm section, and then add my 3.5 inches for seam allowance. So once I've figured that out, I've got my armhole traced, I know my full length, I can then cut out the rectangle, and that will be ready to then add on. Next, unfold the sleeve section so that all the good sides are facing up. Now grab the shirt and align this center top seam with the center of the sleeve. Then pin those two sections so they are joined and aligning. Then just continue to wrap the sleeve around this armhole section and pin it in place. As you can see here, obviously the line of the sleeve is going the other way compared to the line of the armhole, but that's perfectly fine. We'll just keep moving it around and adjusting to fit each section as we go. So continue pinning all the way around there until you have done the front and the back side, and then it is time to sew one line all around there and join them together. So to figure out the lengths of the different sections of the elastic, we'll just figure out where this sleeve is going to finish and wrap around the elastic there and add an inch seam allowance. Whenever you find these points, I would suggest not to pull it tight, just kind of let it be, and that will help bunch it up anyway. And then for the chest area, we'll just throw it around our neck, down our underarm, and all the way back around. Again, don't pull it too tight, and make sure that you have enough seam allowance added so there's an overlapping section for us to sew it and join it. And then to figure out our waist area, again, just throw it all the way around our waist and add that extra seam allowance for the overlap section. And then that will be all the elastic sections that we need. Now to jump into adding them onto the shirt. We will focus on one point. I'm going to start around the chest. We'll just flip it so it's inside out and we're looking at the bad sides. We'll fold a single hem all the way around this raw edge, and that will be about 1/4 inch. So once you've folded that, pin it in place, then sew one line all the way around there. For the second hem fold, we need to make this one large enough to cover the elastic area. So fold it and even place your elastic on top so you can visualize how much you need, and allow at least 1/4 inch beyond that so that you have space to sew. Again, pin that down and sew one line all the way around there, except this time stop about 1 to 2 inches from where you started, and that will be the hole that we insert the elastic through. Pop a safety pin onto the edge of your elastic and thread it through this hole and through the tunnel all the way around until you reach the point that you started. Pin the two edges of the elastic together, and maybe just double check that it's all nice and straight and not folded anywhere throughout there. And you could even try it on to make sure that the tightness of this fits well around your shoulders and under your arm section. Make any adjustments if need be. Then once you're happy with that, switch your machine to a zigzag stitch and zigzag back and forth along that elastic where it overlaps, and that will secure that in place. Once that's complete, just stretch it out so that it pulls the elastic back into that hidden tunnel, and then we'll just need to switch the machine back to a normal stitch and close that section that we had left open. So that's how it should be looking around that neckline now. We just need to repeat the same process where we hem the edges, add the elastic into the waist and the armhole, and then we pretty much have a finished top. So I'm going to complete that and then I will show you how it turns out. And now now we should have a top that is all finished. So we've got the elastic in the chest area, the arm section, and the waist. I think this is such a cute go-to number. It's so fun to dress up or just keep it casual. Pretty much I say that about everything I make because that is my entire wardrobe, things that are practical to style with anything. If you did follow along this tutorial, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it all made sense. If you do happen to make it, I would love to see how it turns out, so please tag me at the Essentials Club on Instagram and I will definitely check it out. Wherever you are, I hope you have a beautiful day and I will see you guys in the upcoming videos.